You tell yourself it's about the money. That's probably the story you've been running for a while now. Maybe you're feeling like you're falling behind in the life that you thought you'd have by now, and gambling feels like the fastest path back to even. Or maybe you've convinced yourself that if you just had one good run, one real win, you could fix the things that are actually broken. Pay off the debt, get your head above water, and stop feeling like you're always playing catch up. Or hell, maybe even ride in and save the day, showing the doubters how wrong they were. It sounds logical. Money can be a real problem, so gambling for money makes a kind of sense. But here's what I've noticed working with men on this. If gambling was actually about money, it would stop feeling compelling the moment it started destroying your finances. The math would take over. You'd see the damage clearly and you'd just stop, because the point, getting money, is being defeated by the very thing you're doing to get it. And for most men struggling with gambling, that's not what happens. The pull stays even when the account is empty, even when the logic is completely gone, even when some part of them knows clearly that this isn't working. That's because the money was never the true underlying point. If we haven't met yet, I'm Phil Shea, addictions counselor, and I work with men struggling with gambling and video game addiction. And one of the most important changes I see in men who start making real progress on this one, it's realizing they're not chasing cash. They're chasing what cash represents, which is often something more. And recognizing that leads to a different way of seeing things. Let's break down what money can stand for. For some men, money means freedom. We're talking more than just financial freedom, but the deeper feeling of not being trapped. Feeling free from the job, the bills, the slow suffocating grind of life that feels like it's happening to you rather than being built by you. In this case, the win is really a fantasy of exit, of finally getting out from under it. For others, money means control. Like, they feel like life has been pushing them around. Circumstances, other people, bad luck, a system that doesn't work in their favor. And gambling is one of the few places that they feel like they're making a decision with a real stake. Win or lose, there's something happening that they deliberately chose. For others still, it's about status or esteem, being the guy who pulled it off, who beat the house, who figured something out that most people couldn't. There's a version of the gambler who sees himself as smarter than the odds, and wins validate that. Losses don't fully cancel it because there's always the next hand or the next chance to be proven right. And for a lot of men, underneath all of it, it's about relief, safety, the idea that enough money would create enough distance between them and the thing that's closing in on them. The anxiety, the shame, the guilt, and the feeling that they're always one bad event away from things just getting worse. A big win would be a buffer, to have some breathing room. So when a man says he's gambling for money, what he's really saying is, I want out. I want to stop feeling trapped. I want to feel like I'm winning at something. I want to feel like life is opening up instead of closing down. The money is simply a stepping stone, the symbol that feels like a shortcut to something deeper that's harder to name and harder to ask for directly. Another possible reason that you might be gambling is for the thrill, the feeling of power that comes from a big win, like you're on top of the world. It's breaking up the monotony. Life outside of the gambling feels humdrum, boring, gray. But now you're in it. You're winning. You're doing what feels right. It feels like you were born to do this. And if any of these reasons are resonating with you, if you're starting to see what you've been chasing might not actually be monetary, this is exactly the work I do with men in private sessions. But figuring out what the behavior has been doing for you, what need it's meeting, and what it's been standing in for. Because until you understand that, stopping is just white-knuckling. The urge finds its way back in through a different door. The link for scheduling a free call is in the description. So here's a part that's hard to sit with. Even when people win, winning real money, the deeper thing doesn't get solved. So even if you have a ton of money, you still keep going back. The relief is real, but brief. The breathing room is temporary. It's house money, and as I've said in other videos, it often leads to bigger bets and accepting greater risk. But even if you avoid that, the underlying thing is still there because it was never actually about money. A win doesn't deliver anything lasting, which is why the next bet is queued up. People imagine it's purely greed, but it's more likely to stem from the same need, unmet, looking for another means of being met. This is why logic alone doesn't fix the situation. You can sit down with a spreadsheet and lay out exactly what gambling has cost you. You can do the math clearly, soberly, with full information. And the urge will still likely come back because you're not dealing with a math problem. You're dealing with a fantasy of becoming someone different, someone who doesn't have to worry, someone whose life opens up. And that fantasy is emotion fueled, and you can't argue someone out of a feeling with a spreadsheet. So if you've been treating this purely as a monetary problem, working on the finances, restricting access to funds, trying to logic your way out, you're working on the right problem, but maybe at the wrong level. The financial damage is real and it does need attention, but the engine underneath behavior hasn't been touched, and it will keep running until you understand what it's actually fueled by. What does freedom actually mean to you specifically? What would control feel like in your life? What's the thing that feels like it's closing in that you've been using gambling to create distance from? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're the actual starting point of useful progress on killing the desire to gamble. When you know what it is you're actually chasing, you can start asking whether there are other ways to get it, especially ways that won't cost you everything in exchange for something fleeting. And it starts with being honest about the fact that this was never about money. If you're ready for that conversation, click the link below to book an appointment. You'll be glad you did. And as always, I'm Phil Shea, Addictions Counselor. Have a great day.